JavaScript arrays are used to store multiple values in a single variable. In this session, we'll be talking about arrays. An array is it's a special variable that can hold more than one value at a time. We've seen a lot of variables, right? A variable is something that can hold one value, and a collection of such variables can be called as an array. So let's see an example here. I'm on the JS bin and I'll click on, we don't need an output, we need a console. I'll click on JavaScript here and let's say I'll create an array. It's similar to creating a variable, but only difference is it starts with a what we call a big bracket or a boxed bracket, and then it'll have multiple values. So let's say we have many cars, and a classic example of an array. Great, so this is called an array. What do we do with this? So if I can, let's say, what happens if I console.log of this and then I run it, it displays the array. Great, so let's start with something. So I'm just going to create a sort of a line just for our convenience, so it appears like this, and then this is called an array. Let me also comment it, or let's say we document it. Then we'll learn about array length. Great, so we'll be foraying into what we call as methods. So JavaScript comes with some inbuilt methods, and the first of them that we'll see in this tutorial is called length, so array length, and the method is something like this. So I take the name of my variable, which is cars, or name of the array, and then I add a dot. That means JavaScript knows that I'm calling for an inbuilt method, and then I type length, and this will display the length of that method. So let's see what this does. So I have 4, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. This is telling me that the length of your array is 4. That means there are 4 elements in your array. That's what this does. And let's moving on. Let's say I have to parse an array. What's the meaning of parsing? We'll see that. So parsing means I'm processing something with that. I'm taking the array and making it do something. So let's see, for example, I'm going to use something called as a for loop. Don't worry about it if you don't get it. We'll be covering for loop in statements. But for now, let me give you an example. For all values of I refers to the elements inside an array. And let's say start with 0. For all elements that are less than its length, increment them by 1 and then print it out like this. First take that element like this, and then I'll add some sort of a string. This is nothing, this is just an indicator, and then add whatever cars are there along with their position in it. So for example, Audi is at position I want it to start with 0. Audi is at 0, Mercedes is at 1, BMW is at 2, and Jeep is at 3. I want to print it that way, and let's see what that does if I clear this out and run. I'm missing something. Okay, let's see. Okay, great. So yes, so semicolons are important because I have a flower bracket closing at the bottom. Anyway, so that's what this does. So this is printing exactly that. So for all values, if I had to print this, I had to type the console log 4 times, but using for loop helps you reduce repetitive tasks, and that's why for loops are used. But we'll cover this in more detail. But that's what it means to parse an array. What do I have? Let's look at some more methods. So let's say, so I'm going to create something called the first element and create another variable called first. And this is always set to the first element of whatever is inside the array. So let's say we shuffle this around, and this particular variable will always print the first element. So let's say console.log, let's see what this does. First car in array is, and then say first. Let's see what this does. And it's Audi, it's printing Audi. So that's it. That is what this does, and it prints the first one. We'll use this later. So let me just put my markers so that we have clear bifurcations in our output of the console log. Great. And now let's look at similarly, how do I print if I have to print the last one? So I'll create a last one and say cars. So there's another way of doing it. I can say, I know that there are 4 elements and I can type 4, but another way of doing it is to do it dynamically. So what if I have 10 other cars added in my garage and then I haven't kept an account of it? My car would always print this would always print Jeep, right? So in order to save that from happening, so I'm going to create a simple using the method, a simple array. So -1 is a sorting way of sorting, and this is always referred to. This is 0, 1, 2, and 3 index, and then it starts from -1. It always refers to the last one. So the array length is usually -1 from the last. So if I have to call that, let's see what this does. See what this does. This should print Jeep. There you go. This prints Jeep. So if this ever changes, which will change now, it will print the last car. So let's say I want to add an element to the array in the end. So I want to add an array. So it's done by so say push is the method, and then I'm gonna add another car, let's say Kia, and then I print that. Now let's see what has happened. And I also want to print this. Okay, so let's see what this does. So for some reason it's not printing. So I should be doing this before. And I should be doing this again, right? So cars. Okay. Now it's Kia, and now yes, some changes. Great, and now it should be. There you go. So that's what that method does. And if I have to remove an element, so if I'm going to remove the last element, oops, the method is called pop, and then if we console log of cars, let's see, so it's back to what it was before, right? So let's also do a console.log here. Oops, just so we know that what was it before, and then tidying up a bit. So earlier it was this array, and it has now become this. All right. So now what if I have to remove an element at the beginning? What if I want to take out Audi? How do I do that? So it's done by something called as shift. It's another method. So I do a shift, and then so we now have only Mercedes. The Audi is gone. So what if I want to add something at the start? So it's done by a method called unshift. Let's say I want to add a Jaguar, and then oops, yes, a single quote should also do, but let's say we do it like this. So this is how we add an element into our so this identifies the array name, and this is the method that we're following, and this is the value that we want it to be entered into. And I run this now, and we've got now Jaguar. Right. So how do I remove an item? Let's say we're talking about the beginning and ending. You might be wondering, what do we do if we have to remove the second or the third? So that's where we remove it by index position. So we know that the position of the first element starts with 0, 0, 1, and 2, and 3. That's how it's indexed in the memory. So let me put this here, give this an n, and then moving on. Let's say remove an item by index position, and then that's pretty done something like this. Just for our records, I added a console log, and I always miss this. Okay, great. So that's just a print statement. So now I'm going to create a variable is equal to 1, and then 2 is equal to 2, and the method is called splice from 2. I could put 1 or 2 here, numbers, and I just chose to put it in the variables. I'll show you both the methods. Console.log is cars, and I clear this and I put this as here. So now we have elements removed. So it's removed the Mercedes and BMW, because this is 0, 1, 2, and 3. So 1 and 2 were asked to be removed, and now we have Jaguar and Jeep. So you can also put numbers instead of variables, but a better way of doing it is by doing it through variables. So if I change this number to 0, and there is no 2 because there's only 0 and 1, and let's see what it will be. Now you can notice that it's 0, 1, and 2 has now become BMW and Jeep. So because it's counting from here. So I hope you understood this method, and this is clear. So that's about arrays. See you in the next session.